Welcome to this session. It is the second session on classical criticism. It will be based on how Aristotle reacted to Platonic ideas of imitation, inspiration, poetry, and Aristotle's views on the power of imitation. As we know that Aristotle's Poetics foregrounded the history of English literary criticism and theory. Aristotle cannot be evaded from the history of criticism. He cannot be undermined or ignored because the idea which he developed in the name of imitation has been carried over by many, or say almost all, literary critics and theorists. And writers of different genre. The reason is Aristotle in his Poetics gave a new perspective to the word imitation, and he gave importance to the image of man unlike Plato, as Plato has given importance to the divine inspiration or divine being as the cause of all creative forces. Here we will discuss the general views of imitation and action and their impact on the audience or reader, and how they become the cause of cathartic effect. Aristotle's Poetics is significant also because for the very first time in the history of world literary criticism, somebody, say Aristotle, related the idea of purification of soul and mind through the effect of literature. This idea is based on the philosophical notion that a man must do action as he thinks so he or she should do or act. Only virtues or having virtues are not enough. Manipulation or projection of those virtues into action is much required. So, let us understand the core ideas of Aristotle, which he discussed in reference to Plato's ideas of imitation and art in the Poetics. At the core of Aristotle's Poetics, there are two complex notions, imitation and action, which are imbued with both Aristotle's metaphysical principles and his ethical political dispositions. Like Plato, Aristotle holds that poetry is essentially a mode of imitation, but Aristotle propounds an entirely different view of imitation, one which leads him to regard poetry as having a positive function. For Plato, imitation itself embodied a step away from truth. As I have discussed, Plato's idea of imitation in the former session of classical criticism. For Plato, imitation itself embodied a step away from truth, since it produced an imperfect copy of the form or essence of a given entity. In this sense, the entire world of physical phenomena for Plato was an imperfect imitation of the world of forms. For Aristotle, imitation is both a mode of learning and associated with pleasure. It's a very important point and must be traced out at the time of reading Poetics. That Aristotle did not or does not concern with imitation as the source of creation, but he also concerns with it in relation to the mode of learning. Imitation for him is the mode of learning, and since it eventuates mode of learning, it gives pleasure to the rational being, human being. So imitation leads to things: knowledge and pleasure. How knowledge? How does it convey knowledge? For answering to this question, we must recall how he has defined tragedy. He said it is an imitation of life. Imitation has been, the word mimesis has been explained in many ways and from many perspectives and dimensions. One of them is reflection. The other is representation. So, imitation being a representation, it represents a life. And when one goes to define life, there is nothing in the world which will left undiscussed at the time of defining life. Life is so complex phenomena. So once, if anybody says that poetry or literature or tragedy or any genre is representation of life, that means it represents the complex phenomenon of the world, which after reading gives the reader innate knowledge. Thus, imitation provides knowledge. It gives opportunity to the reader to know how to learn. It can be explained in many ways. Like Dr. Johnson said, literature must instruct. Great periodicals of their times, Edition and Steele, said the objective of literature or writing should be to improve society. Neoclassical artists and literary people have also emphasized on the reformation of society. So all these propositions or ideas are somehow connected to how to learn. How to learn to live, how to learn to sleep, how to learn to think, how to learn to perceive and experience. So all of these mental or physical activities are, for Aristotle, the results of imitation. And those who are in the process of learning will definitely be pleased after learning something or reading something or experiencing something new at the time of inquiry. This idea of learning and pleasure as the result of imitation has been explained in Aristotle's Rhetoric, where he infers that since learning and admiration are pleasant, the imitative arts such as drawing, sculpture and poetry must also be pleasant. The other crucial notion, now I would draw attention of yours to the idea of Aristotle's action. The other crucial, and this is the other notion and very important or significant notion discussed in the Poetics, and it is about action. In the Politics, Aristotle attempts to evaluate the relative merits of contemplation and action. It is clear that he places a high priority on action. He states that virtue in itself is not enough. There must also be the power to translate it into action. So, an action in Poetics also he centers and pays attention on the action and the result of this action. In the definition of tragedy, he includes the significance of action and how action leads the destiny of man and how does it form man's life or deforms man's life. Let us quote the lines of Aristotle when he defines and how does he define tragedy, and then thereafter we will discuss the role of action in the constitution of literature and piece of art. He defines tragedy is then an imitation of an action. Action connotes life. Action connotes deeds. Action connotes thinking, ideology. How do we think? How do we act accordingly? So, tragedy, as he has appreciated its elements, is then an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, of a certain magnitude, by means of language enriched with all kinds of ornament, each used separately in the different parts of the play. It represents men in action and does not use narrative, and through pity and fear, it effects relief to these and similar emotions. In this definition, Aristotle affects our mind. In this definition, he gave elements of tragedy. Before defining tragedy, he defines art as an imitation of life. Whatever genre is, but every branch of art needs imitation. Of them, tragedy is superior for Aristotle. And it is superior because it has strategic elements. It is serious, it is complete, has some kind of certain magnitude, it has organic whole, and above all, it represents men in action, does not use narrative. Men in action, action on the stage. And how does he give relief to the audience? This is a question. Aristotle says, through action, under the pressure of pity and fear. A tragedy is great genre. Why? Because it has elements of, reasons of, aspects of, sources of making pity and fearful in moment, through which audience identifies his emotion with the emotion or the feeling or experiences of the character's action being played on the stage. Thus, Aristotle's idea of imitation leads to the idea of cathartic effect. In imitation is not the root cause of man's astray as Plato conceded. For Aristotle, it has power to improve, to instruct and inspire people and please people, because it is entirely based on man's action. Shakespeare's tragedies are very fine examples of it, be it Othello, Hamlet, King Lear, or Macbeth. All these characters in Shakespeare's tragedies led their life out of their action. They reached there where their action led them, whether the action was of their mind or of their physical attitude. So action is primarily in the views of Aristotle, and this is the only cause of creating the impact on the mind of a reader and audience. I would also like to add some views on how action is above all. The notion of action is central to Aristotle's views, I have told you, because it underlies the other components and features. Now, action is important because it constitutes plot. Plot is important. Plot cannot be a plot without chain of events and actions and diction, thoughts, spectacle and so on. So, and all these elements are based on only one element called action. That's why action is above all. for Aristotle. These elements, including plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song, include the means of imitation, the manner of imitation, and the objects of imitation. So imitation does not dwell only with writer or a dramatist. It dwells with the dramatist, it dwells with the technique he follows, it dwells with the reader or audience or spectacle. And it also dwells with the objects of tragedy. So imitation is an ingredient of tragedy or an art. It cannot be ignored because it leads to the cathartic effect and thoughtful recreation. Thanks.